Okay, hello everybody. Professor Bell with you again, and I wanted to talk about agriculture, but from the viewpoint of Food Day. I was asked to be on a Food Day panel several years ago, and had literally no idea what the you know what the event was. And you can see here that it was in 2015 when I first did this, but you can look and see that they have different titles, different themes for it each and every year. But again, because I was asked to be a part of this and speak on it, I thought, well, gosh, I better at least know what it is. So I decided to educate myself and the people that had come to the Food Day event on what it was. And so these six basic themes or ideas behind Food Day are the reducing diet-related disease, as you can see here, safe and healthful foods, sustainability of farms and to limit subsidies, which is taxpayer money that goes largely to big agribusiness conglomerates here that really don't necessarily need the money to, for instance, grow more corn and breed more cattle, and 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 then overlook the family farm and smaller interests and the specialty interests over that of uh, the large corporations. Um, Alleviating hunger and getting, again, healthful foods to citizens of the country, protecting the environments, and thinking about animal welfare. You'd say, well, they were bred to be, killed to be eaten. Well, that's true, but should their entire lives also be, included as torture? And I think that, animal rights is almost as important as human rights, to be honest with you. Um, you know, maybe you don't feel that way, maybe you don't care, but hopefully this will make you think more about it. Um, Curbing junk food and marketing. Most of us here in the U.S. are not having a balanced and healthy diet, and it's resulted in all kinds of health problems, obesity among them. And then considering the workers that are in these production facilities is something worth considering. So if we take a look here at, for instance, reducing diet related diseases, so BSE, bovine spongiform encephalopathy, here is also known as mad cow disease, and can be transmitted to humans if you eat infected meat. And part of this was simply because back when, to maximize profits, if a cow went, if a cow died, they'd grind that thing up and then leaven it into the feed meal, essentially making the cattle cannibals. Again, all to maximize profits, and to see these cows with the neurological problems uh, of shaking and inability to stand up, and knowing that we could eat this, oh my gosh, it's really scary. Also looking at salmonella, E. coli, and spinach and things like that. There are certainly issues to be concerned about within the food system itself. So it would be probably better if it were more local, being a locavore, than the global, the age of the 1,500-mile salad, as it's been called, coming from California during the wintertime. Maybe you paid attention to, Subway not giving you tomatoes in the wintertime simply because they taste like crap. They don't look good at all. They were shipped across the country. Maybe there should be seasonal foods. And, tomatoes is not a 12-month crop. If we look at the agribusinesses here, the big ones, Cargill, Nestle Corporation, Monsanto, Conagra, and ADM are all big players here. And you can see across the spectrum, like with the image of Conagra Foods, from ketchup to Pam to Jello snack packs and Ready Whip and everything else. I mean, these kinds of companies expand at such a great rate. They clearly, as the slide indicates, they squeeze out the small farmers. Do really go doubling down on using fossil fuels to grow these things, even using somehow it costs more anyway to use ethanol, but to use ethanol within to grow the ethanol than to use it in the machines that you're using to grow the corn. It's, man, what a closed system, what a closed loop. And it's the unsustainable nature of that production, which is wasteful in water and soil and labor and money. And the money, again, coming from taxpayers, going to just a few very large, but a very few in number corporations. Food deserts have become quite pronounced, especially in places where there's higher levels of poverty. And so you'll see this, for instance, in, let's see if I can find my cursor here, white-dominated Appalachia here in eastern Kentucky and West Virginia, or what is called the Black Belt, more heavily settled African American populations on Native American reservations like the Navajo and other ancestral Puebloans out here, or Native American reservations out here like the Lakota Sioux, among others. And so getting fresh fruit may be a banana or an apple at a convenience store. That may be the extent of it, that the cheap food, the affordable food you can have, is always heavily processed, high fat, salt, sugar, like McDonald's. The fries are oversalted, the meat's too fatty, the drinks loaded up with high fructose corn syrup. All these are going to, result in very unhealthy people and shorter lifespans, more difficult lifespans. And of course, in poor places, you also have a limit to how much access to doctors and medicines and healthcare you can get. So all of this is not a good situation. So fixing the problem you have to start somewhere, and food would be a way to do this. But again, a system's been set up such that it's going to be difficult to change it, because the food is now so cheap to produce, they give you twice as much as you really need. Who's gone to dinner before, ordered a plate, and forced yourself to eat it all, or smart enough, if you're not like me, smarter, you divide the thing immediately, put half of it in a to-go container, and then eat a normal meal there and have the second one when you get home. Anyway, what produces this? Factory farms. If you're buying turkey or chicken or beef or pork, the whole laundry list here: unnatural lighting, unclean air, unnatural fast growth rates, chronic pain for some of these for some of these animals, packed in very tightly, medicating the little chicks, for instance. They get antibiotics, bip bip bip, in their neck. A person just sits there on a conveyor belt, grabbing baby chicks and sticking them with antibiotics within a few hours of them hatching. They largely accept that hundreds, if not thousands, of these birds will die in the rearing, and just they're okay with that. I don't know if you ever have seen what happens in the terms of surgical mutilations, but what happens to all the baby roosters that are born? Well, if you don't know, it's a horror show. They get thrown into a grinder and are turned into paste immediately. You can look this up and see it, but I wouldn't advocate you do it. It's very difficult to watch. And so the final one, shortened lives, is basically getting them to market weight as quickly as possible. Some of the breasts on the chicken now are so, on these roasters are so big the birds can't even walk around. The meat develops faster than their bones do, and they break. And so it's not very, what's the word I'm looking for here? It's not very ethical, if we're being honest. And it says something about us that we're willing to let this. And I'm not calling you out. I'm throwing myself right in there. I'm still a meat eater. I eat mostly fish and chicken. But to say that and then I willfully go along with this, says something about the system in which I've been inoculated into. So when we look at big factory farms, and this is a feedlot with thousands of head of cattle and loads of waste, and mile after mile of corn and soybeans grown to feed to these guys, and the water used from the panhandle of Texas, the Ogallala Aquifer, Oklahoma, Kansas, and other places, all of this is wrapped up holistically together into a very efficient thing, but one that has plenty of problems, environmental, ethical, health-wise, and so forth. So Food Day seeks to expose this kind of stuff. When you look at hogs in the pen, they don't even have room to turn around. They're eating their own feces. This is hard to see, but it's the reality of it. You look at the milking operation. Now, this is pretty high tech, but these cows live solely to produce milk, and they are literally milked 6 times a day. They put them on the conveyor belt. They eat a little bit sometimes, or they're on the fun little ride while they're hooked up, and then by the time they come to the end, they're rolled off, and another cow rolls on. But this is what factory farming and milk producing looks like. If we look at how we sell things, when I was a kid, Saturday morning was loaded up with cartoons, and I was eating my Cookie Crisp cereal and Fruit Loops and Trix and Lucky Charms. They're magically delicious, and all these kinds of things. These are high sugar cereals. Now, though, look how General Mills stamps all of their, it's whole grain. Oh, wow, really? Whole grain? What about whole sugar? I do eat Chex and stuff now, which is less sugar. Corn Chex, rice Chex, and stuff like that. But a lot of this stuff here is it's just not good for you. And again, it's marketed to the kids in such a way, like McDonald's again with their Happy Meals. There's always a toy inside. So this is an easy way to sell junk food to kids because kids can nag their parents about it. Workplace safety and for food and farm workers here is paramount too. These people are running conveyor belt systems of go 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 go, and sometimes it's so fast they have a hard time breaking out of the line just to go to the bathroom to get a break. If this is in the packaging portion of the room here with chicken breasts, it looks like, but if you're on the killing floor and you're the butcher and you're cutting this stuff up and you're having to run through however many animals as a quota per hour, what's the likelihood you cut yourself and get an infection? And it's pretty high, and it actually happens quite often. This seems a bit unfair for the workers to have to work at that speed for that poor pay. And if you doubt me on this, go to Bowling Green, Kentucky, or go to Shelbyville where a Tyson plant is. And if you look at all these meat processing plants, it's largely very poor people that work in there, or immigrants. And it's loads of immigrants that you see in here too. And maybe you'd say they're happy to have the job, but again, I don't think they should have to work for peanuts at such a pace, at such a discomfort for us, just so we can have 10 cents off on chicken breasts. So I think about the ethical nature of worker conditions and safety as well. Okay, so tell you what, I'm going to stop it here and get part 2, and then I'll be done with this lecture. Okay, see you in a second. Bye.